ahead of myself.
No. 1, 2.
Yes, okay.
These 2, and then these ones
Okay,
are going
perfect.
to follow on here.
Wonderful, thank you.
No. That was Diane Snodgrass when she was with Avi Buertas. Yeah. She did.
.334 Sport Horse Stud is an up-and-coming Warmblood stud farm based in Nottingham Road, KwaZulu-Natal. Named after our founder's beloved mare, Volker 334, the farm boasts some of the best bloodlines in the industry, carefully selected and bred for their exceptional jumping abilities and athleticism. In the words of our founder, Govert Triggle, my philosophy for 334 Sport Horse Stud, along with my breeding strategy, is to breed with proven mares that have competed at 140 level and above. Superior quality show jumpers that are not produced by chance, but by understanding the genetic package a top mare and selected stallion can produce. At 334, we don't believe in gambling with genetic possibilities, but by breeding legendary sureties. The genetic foundation of our breeding process is rooted in our carefully selected black-type mares, as it is believed that the maternal lines account for up to 70% of breeding outcomes. By breeding with mares that have soundly competed in the sport at top level, we are able to produce horses with the physical attributes, athleticism, and temperament to excel as exceptional show jumpers. We exclusively breed via embryo transfer, which assists us in breeding more than one foal a year per mare. Our surrogate mares are critical to the success of the 334 program and are cared for as such. Our goal is to produce horses who have the ability to win at every level, allowing us to breed a diverse selection of horses for everyone, for any height, and with any dream or goal in mind. 334 Sport Horse Stud, where champions are bred and legends are made.
Welcome to the 2023 South African Warmblood Horse Society's virtual Young Stock Show, held tonight here in Gauteng. I'm very lucky to be joined by some wonderful professionals as we prepare to have a look at the wonderful dressage and show jumping breeding on offer here tonight. Sitting to my left immediately, I have Candice Hobday. Candice herself, a leading dressage rider, breeder, and the director, correct, Candice, of Arco Insurance, which also handles imports and exports. So Candice has had a lot of horses come through her hands. Down towards the end of the table, we have international event rider Graham Wynne. Graham, of course, one of our famous World Equestrian Games competitors, turning his hand to show jumping, and also an expert producer of many, many young horses based out in Springs. And the rose between the thorns, we have Rogan Askin, a South African pedigree and bloodline expert, open show jumper, trainer of many, and all-round respected equestrian expert. I am Georgie Roberts, and I am very happy to be playing your commentator tonight as we prepare to kick off with our under 4-year-old class. That is going to be our 3 to 4-year-olds dressage bred horses leading off, and we have 2 horses in that class for our esteemed judges to cast their eyes over. Judges, of course, are going to be having a look at the movement of these horses with a mind to a future dressage career, but also having a look at the pedigrees. Pedigrees playing a great part in determining a horse's breeding future, not necessarily always what we are seeing in front of us. Our first horse in this class is going to be Cheval Dansant de Marchelier. This horse I know is based down in the Western Cape. He was bred by Sue Botha and owned now by Luzon Slubbert. Candice, have you had a look at this horse's pedigree?
I have had a look at it.
Okay.
Yep. So Daddy Cool presented a couple of really fantastic foals over the last 2 virtual shows that I've judged. So it's great to start seeing them in a older age bracket, and obviously going to be super exciting to have a look at them over the next few years when we start to see them under saddle. He stamps them extremely sportily, and for sure on the mother line you've got Benicio and Dornahal and Veltmeier again, so really impeccably bred.
Rogan, your thoughts on that bloodline?
It's so interesting to see now how they're doubling up in pedigrees. So you'll see more than one time Donahal, more than one time Laureus Crusader. And I see in this horse's pedigree, Veltmeier is also repeated. And that's going to fix your stamp. And it's just genetically so powerful.
Graham, I know you're a big fan of a walk in a horse. How do you feel having a look at this young gelding now moving around?
Yeah, very good. I'd like to see in this horse's pedigree, Veltmeier is also repeated. And that's going to fix your stamp. It's just genetically so powerful.
On my right, so yes, breeding is definitely heading in the right direction for a very athletic horse, and that's what we're here to try and judge today.
The breeder of this horse, Sue Botha, says that she line-bred this youngster to iconic dressage sires Donahal and Veltmeier, a cross that has produced multiple European champions over the decades. A double dose of Laureus Crusader in the sire's pedigree did not go unnoticed either. This horse is based with one of the Western Cape Open dressage riders, Luzon Slubbert now. And I think they were very keen to keep him entire, but Patrick, as he is affectionately known, did have a rather precocious taste for ladies.
The disadvantages of testosterone.
Yes.
Or advantages.
I'm on the ladies' side here. I must say he's very typey, and it certainly seems from what I remember in last year's that the Daddy Cools are coming across as very sporty, and I mean him himself I love. He is a
wonderful
electric, sporty, impressive dressage specimen, so he's clearly stamping that through as well.
Rogan, how are you feeling looking at the movements of this young horse?
I'll borrow one of Candice's favorite phrases. He's long-lined. There's lots to like about him. I think what we're looking at is a very adolescent horse. So there's going to be more to come. He's going to come up in front, come up in his wither. There's loads of potential, and he's very likable.
Graham, as someone who deals with so many young horses, What are your feelings looking at that Daddy Cool colt?
I think Rogan mentioned there that he's still got to come up in front, and he is at that age in his life of growth that he is a little on the front end, and I'd like to see him lighter in his shoulder, but I'm sure that is going to come with time.
Fantastic. Really lovely horse, and as Candace said, Daddy Cool, a wonderful addition to the South African breeding program from the Sawhs stud. That's Karen and Dominique Alexander. When it comes to dressage pedigrees, though, definitely Karen is the passion behind that. Daddy Cool, an imported, licensed Hanoverian stallion, the sire of this Cheval d'Ansant de Marchelier, Benicio and De Niro Voltmeyer on the dam line. Really wonderful pedigree on this young horse.
So for me, the big takeaway on him is he's a very rhythmical horse. He certainly keeps a super rhythm if you look at him through the turns or changes of direction, both in trot and canter. But as mentioned by Graham, I think he needs a bit of time to develop his real uphill tendency, because he is quite immature even as a 4-year-old, but rather slow maturing than over mature too young.
Absolutely.
Quality head, I think you'll all agree, and a very extrovert, positive expression.
Counts for a lot. A horse that comes into the arena and really makes an impact. And I think the answer always with how long is it going to take a horse to mature is how long is a piece of string. You just never really know what you're dealing with, and each horse, I suppose, Graham, I'm sure that's a strong feeling with you. It just needs to be taken as per each individual case.
Yeah, so often if riders try and change what naturally the horse is built like, and they do it too quickly, that's when you start getting problems within their training purpose. So you've got to respect how they are built, and I'm pretty sure listening to who the horse is going to, she'll understand that and give this horse time to start carrying itself naturally and not try and shortcut that.
Fantastic. Are you guys all happy?
Happy?
Okay, moving on to the second horse in this class. That is Rivendell's Finnick. This is a Hanover import owned by Corin Koop of Rivendell Stud. He is by the stallion Finnegan, who won his 14-day test, as well as the Voltmeyer Prize as one of Hanover's best young dressage stallions. He himself has licensed sons already. So our judges having a look over that pedigree, which on the dam line goes to Don Index, Laureus Crusader, and Volkenstein too. Candace, what do you think about that? That's some gold pedigree there.
Yeah, really. I mean, bred in the purple. I think he's certainly, Finnegan himself was stunning, but obviously Florencio, I remember him in the times that he was presented, had that extraordinary canter. Of course, having had Felina, I'm a fan of Floriston. And then the Don Crusader going on Don Bosco Donnerhall, lion bred to Veltmeyer again. In fact, lion bred to Donnerhall 3 times and Veltmeyer, I think 4 times. So really beautifully bred, this young horse.
Rogan, your feelings on this?
Really enjoying his walk.
He's
super
very
walk.
immature for his age. So I think this, you're not really getting a good idea. I think in another year or two it will be a very different picture. He looks more like a 3-year-old to me.
I suppose that also depends on the import process, right, Graham? Horses can sometimes lose a bit of time there.
Well, remember they're born Northern Hemisphere versus, so he's probably 6 months younger than the other one.
He's a October. Sorry, November. Yeah, October. Sorry, I can't count to 10 apparently. Graham, how are you feeling about this?
A lot better since he started moving. I thought he looked, when I saw him just standing, I didn't think he was going to move just quite like he moves now. So it's, this, I've got a stronger or better feel for it once he started moving.
Nice and elastic there.
Yeah, great choice of word. He does give a strong feeling of elasticity.
I think it must also be quite hard for the horses to really present themselves at their full maturity, or in comparison to their full maturity when they're a little under-muscled and underdeveloped, maybe a little bit on the forehand still. So you've got to also look at him as a whole and have a bit of imagination, not disadvantage him for the fact that he is a little on the immature side.
Yeah. Corin does say that he has the most amazing temperaments and rideability, and it's obviously you just can't see that on a video, and I think that's such an asset to any horse, whether it's going to be a breeding horse or a riding horse. Temperament is certainly a cornerstone of what the Warmblood breeders are looking for. and anyone who doesn't want to die riding horses, unless they want to send them to Graham for backing. And the canter?
Yeah, I think the canter, he moves a little flat in the video, but I think that's a bit to do with his strength and maturity at this stage. But again, quite rhythmical, clear 3-beat, good engagement behind. The hind leg reaches quite well underneath. I think it will become more uphill moving. Also, he carries a little tension through the tail, which will exaggerate all of those. If the horses are a bit more relaxed, which if they're being chased, that's expected. When they're more relaxed, they will show a bit more elasticity. So I would like to see more elasticity, but he has very good rhythm and balance.
So that's horse Rivendell's Finnick, completing our 3 to 4 year olds dressage bred horses out of a class of 2. Our judges are just tallying up their scores for those 2 horses. And we would like to take this moment just to thank some of the wonderful sponsors who not only support the Warmblood breed, but support the sport in South Africa. That includes Talkcraft, Milmac, 334 Sport Horse Stud, who I'm sure we will be looking forward to seeing some progeny of shortly, Iconic Size and Breeding Services, Watermark Warmbloods, Aquila Warmblood Stud, Glover Paddocks Equestrian Park, R&R, Equine SA Online Marketing Services, who have sponsored some wonderful prizes for, I think, all of the entrants or the winners, for anyone who's willing to part with one of their spectacular young horses, Rivendell Stud and CDC. We'll be moving along now to our 3 to 4 year old jumping bred horses. And kicking off this class, we have Latour Bellabint Lubel. This horse owned by Sharon Potgieter and also bred by Sharon Potgieter. So looking more towards our jumping bloodlines here. Rogan, are you ready?
Finally on the page, yeah. All the same lines come through now, darker, so dominant in Europe and plenty of darker in South Africa. And you see the quite common cross darker with Latour going back to Kumano on his dam side. Then you see the mare Roxette, a daughter of Rubino, out of a Libero H Pilote mare. These days, almost nothing's badly bred. It's kind of
It's
personal.
actually really interesting.
Yeah, personal taste.
And when it comes to personal taste, what would you expect from this kind of breeding? You know, we're seeing so many stamps now in the warm blood.
Looking at this, you get a feeling of darker. They're sort of solid, square, strong.
And Graham, looking at the movement of this young mare?
Yeah, I'm still caught up a little more on a horse looking a little more refined for the jumping these days, a more modern horse, but it doesn't mean to say that a horse that is as well bred as this can't do the job. But, you know, I tend to want to lean more towards like an old-fashioned thoroughbred and a lot more
I know where that's coming from, though, Graham. I know where that's not wanting to jump into like a 1 meter 40 oxer in the country at 80 k's an hour.
She's got a lovely canter, I must say. But just remember, Graham, kudus can jump too.
Sure.
Candice, your feelings on this mare?
So I actually think she's got a very rounded, well-balanced movement. Walk, trot, canter. She tracks over well. She's also quite rhythmical. What I like about her is she's got pretty good hind legs. Especially in the trot, the canter looks quite organized, actually. If I had to fault her, she's a little pony. I would like to see a bit more ground cover in her lines. You know, she's a bit squat, but I've also seen, I think that might come from the darker side. Rogan, you
Absolutely.
can kick me under the table
No,
if you
I think
disagree.
I
but
get
that
spot on.
certainly doesn't stop them from jumping. It turns them into little pocket rockets. So she looks like she might be a little pocket rocket, and certainly looks super steady in the temperament and the mind. I mean, she's attentive to the person in the middle of the lunge ring, left canter, right canter, as organized, no disuniting, super rhythmical, forward going. Yeah, I think it looks like a very interesting horse.
Out of interest to your point, Candice, this mare is 6 months older than the last colt that we looked at. So talking about that northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere difference is quite interesting. Moving on to our second horse in this class, Whitewater's Landry's Time. This horse Owned and bred by Cry Comfort of Whitewater Stud. Cry, no stranger towards good breeding and sport horses. This horse by Eagles Lusaka out of a Katanga Queet Davenport Veerkant Jerez May. So first impressions, Candice?
So compared to the mare, a lot more unfinished as well. So, you know, even though they're in the same age group, this looks like it's got a lot more growing to do. He's a little flat over his top line, but it also could be age-related and could maybe get chucked back to some of that slightly older bloodlines coming through. Yeah, and then certainly, I mean, he looks like he's going to be an athletic soul once he's matured and muscled up.
It's so hard to look at them at this age. Rogan, what do you think?
Yes, exactly that. You're weighing up there the fact that they're very much adolescent, but lots to like about this horse. Powerful. I remember those hocks from Veerkant. Those look like they go back to Veerkant. The Bachman Dollaret that Ernie Davenport stood.
Graham, your feelings?
Yeah, a different horse completely to the first one. As you said earlier, it's very difficult for me to judge a horse at this age because I think lots is going to change later on. But he is still leaning towards the heavier stamp for me.
And I think that comes down a little, obviously, you know, I think Warmblood breeding, the fashions are cyclical, where we put in more power and then we put in more athleticism. So interesting to see what's coming out there.
Well, what's super interesting is how many dressage horses are on this virtual show this time. That's obviously exciting for me on the dressage corner over here, but there's actually more dressage horses being presented than show jumpers. And coming on that cyclical breeding that you've spoken about, I mean, it's been interesting sitting on the sidelines watching the show jumpers over the last, I don't know, 20 years, how they went first enormous with these huge, slow, scopy jumps, and now they're back to these small, fiery, quick, thoroughbred, big pony types, if I could describe it. Lots of blood and very athletic, quick. So it is interesting what tends or influences breeding over time. And I'm sure people also have to remember, you know, you're talking about temperament, aptitude, trainability, scope, soundness. You know, that's also going to whittle out some of the pedigrees over time. So that's certainly interesting.
I hope nobody missed the Jerez blood on the very bottom of the dam line there. That some of our best fair trial jumping blood ever. The dam Volkensich was a very special mare. I think this horse is slightly old-fashioned looking, but very powerful. Lots to like about that.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Moving on to our third horse in the 3 to 4 year olds jumping bred, that is Rivendell Dabina. Again, owned and bred by Karen Koop of Rivendell Stud, based down, such an exceptional stud down in Franschhoek. This is one of the first offspring of Rivendell Braveheart, who is by Balu de Rouet. Despite not being the tallest himself, she says the progeny of all of a decent size. Braveheart is also out of one of their top mares who produced Rivendell Serendipity, Numerology, who's overseas, I believe, with Matthew Morrison, if I'm correct. Rivendell Champagne, who, of course, the wonderful Mia Horskemper is competing very successfully, and Rivendell Lamborghini, my word, I mean, that's quite a damn line. Lamborghini, obviously, under Nicola Simriley. So, yeah, that's quite a damn line. Rogan, what are your feelings about that?
This is out-and-out jumping. I enjoyed watching the themes of the mixtures of Self Francais with Dutch, with French, and then some Hanoverian, even on the very bottom line, tiny line of thoroughbred.
That's behind High Hopes, right?
Yes, absolutely.
High Hopes was that wonderful horse of Ronnie Lawrence's.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Nice to see such a strong dam line. Graham?
Yeah, this one a little quicker off its feet. It looks good. Its stamp or size is still possibly against it, but it's still early days and lots can change. I have to sort of really get my eye into seeing this, and at the end of it, the temperament for me helps so much in any horse. If it's got a temperament, you can try and get a little more out of it than try and quieten down a temperament. So I tend to be quite influenced by the temperament of what I see. You know, you always would like to see a little bit more neck compared to the rest of its body, but that would be hard to judge and fault a horse like that.
I do just like the footnote here saying that the dam, Cheval's Destiny, is probably best known for the fact that she jumped a 1 meter 30 oxer in reverse at an SA show jumping championship. So speaking to some of that temperament, Graham, be careful where you aim it. Okay, our fourth horse in, owned by Shanae Vulcanshaw. It's an import, Bardolino Van Het Groot Veldhof Z. It's quite a mouthful there. Says this horse has incredible temperament by Brunetti Z out of a Carador Darko Serrano mare. What's your first impression there?
There's a lot of horse here.
So he's certainly a beautiful stamp and very quite finished for his age, actually. But you might find he's half a year older
He
maybe
is.
than the others.
He's
so
a June 2019.
Okay, so he's got a slight advantage on them. But gee whiz, also what a beautiful pedigree, huh? Very
Yes.
exciting to have those kind of bloodlines here.
Beautifully turned out as well.
Very beautifully turned out, I must say.
Graham?
Yeah, when I listen to Candice and Rogan, they talk and they know their pedigrees so well. I'm not saying they'd be influenced over anything with looking at the pedigree, but again, this is quite a heavy horse
Yes.
to start off.
I think you bring invaluable input to this, Graham, as somebody who's met, backed, and produced so many young horses. And I found it interesting your comment on the last horse that you're immediately looking at what kind of a ride this is going to give you. You know, and that's your gift, I suppose. What's your feeling from a rideability?
Well, look, just looking at the way modern course design, and I've used the word modern course design, you're looking at a horse that is incredibly supple, elastic through its body, light and nimble, to handle those jumps and the demands put on the sport. And, you know, so the show jumping course design is almost influencing the way the horses are being bred.
Absolutely.
And one has to be very careful that you've got to try and get a horse that can be like that.
We certainly saw that at last World Cup qualifier where, Rogan, I think you said the jumps can't get bigger, so they're making it just slightly trickier and trickier for the horses.
And not slightly.
Next up, fifth horse in this class, we have Willow Viva Ray, owned by Vicky Strachan and bred by Sarah Ann Matthews of Willow Stud. So the sire of this now gelded, Kello Park Vagabond, wonderful horse who is competing successfully in the 130s at the moment, out of a Midas Touch mare by Euphoric, out of a Star Cutter Hatchman mare. This has just turned 3 and is one of the few progeny of Kello Park Vagabond.
I think you'll prefer this, Graham, as a type because it's a little bit more bloody.
And this really is the story of Southern African breeding, that it starts on a thoroughbred dam on the bottom line and then gets, I don't be careful to say upgraded, but upgraded by imported semen and warm-blood stallions.
And some wonderful Zimbabwean thoroughbred blood there, I see, Rogan.
Maybe a better
Yes.
word would be complemented. Because it is a
Complemented.
different type, but I'm telling you, they've
Yes.
done us in very good stead over the years.
Oh, totally.
And this horse so stamped by his sire, right? I mean, that's just so distinctive. Graham, your feelings?
No, it's a rangier type horse for me, so it catches my eye a little more than, say, previous horses, just on general stamp of horse.
I mean, if I had to really fault him, he's a little long, which is unusual on a gelding, I think it is, huh? Or is it? Oh, no, it is a she. Okay, well, then it is sort of a bit expected. You know, often there's a bit more space behind the saddle, but it doesn't make necessarily a difference when it comes to the riding. Certainly on dressage, it can help them with the natural work.
You can actually have a more supple type of ride. Those strong backs, those short backs rather, very strong, but not always the most elastic to move around underneath you. Rogan, how about the canter?
Really like the canter. The hocks are always coming forward underneath and not going out behind it, behind her.
Definitely the highlight out of the
Yes,
gates.
really like the canter.
Moving on to our sixth and final horse in this class, Whitewater's Time to Time, another one from Cry Comfort. This horse by Whitewater's On Time, out of a Taba stud-bred mare, that's by Taba Dastan, out of some good Namibian blood there, CS Dollar, and then Candice Upagaba, way down there on the dam line. So
Wow.
That's
That's a nice-
nostalgic.
That's
Yes, very
extremely
nostalgic.
nostalgic. I was just actually commenting to Rogan earlier about the beach havens, and certainly in my career, I had a lot of wonderful experience with the beach havens. So it's nice to see that coming through on the bloodlines.
she says this is the only colt progeny out of her stallion who jumped very successfully in the 1 meter 50 classes. Rogan, pedigree insights there from you?
Well, there's loads of good blood in here, and what Cry's done is significant. With, I think, not a huge amount of capital behind her, she's produced some very worthwhile horses that were very clever using Ondel V, the son of C and Doctor.
Graham, first impressions?
Yeah, I'd like the way it canted. You know, a little bit more up, and it seemed a bit quicker on its feet and more nimble. So yeah,
Longer
it'll
in
be
the leg.
interesting to see. Yeah.
Some Arab making an appearance there in the tail. Candice?
Yeah, just put that feather duster away. It's actually always, to be honest, okay, well, it can jump.
And wants to.
It's a bit hard to judge them actually when they carry their tails like that. So, you know, we describe it as animating. So they can sometimes look a bit like a hemsbock, which it's not always fair to judge the canter when they do animate. And obviously it can make the trot look 10 times better than, I mean, even a rhino can look like it can passage when it's excited. So it's not easy to judge them when they're animated like that. So, but when she does settle, it certainly looks more elastic. And when she relaxes.
This is a colt.
Oh, he.
Very manly looking. I love that. I think Cry threw in a little extra there for us at the end.
Yeah.
And that is our sixth and final horse in our 3 to 4 year old jumping bred section here today of the South African Warmblood Horse Virtual Young Stock Show.
Fantastic.
We have a result for our 3 to 4 year old dressage bred horse. Our winner of that class by 1%, Cheval d'Ansant de Marchelier, that bred by Sue Boerter and owned by Luzanne Slubbert. Congratulations to both parties. I know they both feel very passionately about this horse. And with 74%, just behind there, Karen Koop with Rivendell's Finnick. Wonderful horse for the future. Very much looking forward to seeing that. The prize for this class, first prize gets a 450 Rand prize money, as well as a 2 kilogram equi
What
and
are we going
clay
on to?
prize. Thank you so much again to our sponsors for making this possible. It's really wonderful, everyone coming together to celebrate the Warmblood horse in South Africa, and it's been brought on so marvelously by none other than our secretary, Frances Shapoop, who is sitting to my right, very quietly. She always hates being mentioned, but she really is the driving energy behind this.
Here, here.
I just want to add that I think those are two very exciting young stock to be seeing in the dressage ring in the future.
So incredibly hard. I don't envy any of you. I think that was a really hard job. Next up, we have our 2 to 3 year old section, dressage bred horses. This is for horses born between 1st of July 2020 and 30th of June 2021. So first up, we have Bernafay Park Fantouche. This horse owned and bred by Julia Conway. She says this horse is her future dressage star. He is by 5 star, the wonderful Compton House stallion imported by Debbie Wallen. Out of, and I love this, bottom line, a Masandi Nutcracker horse, which is by Night Watch, out of a Ramirez Fury Delgado bloodline. So that's some real South African blood there.
Vicky would be very proud.
Very proud. First impressions there, Graham?
Yeah, I like it. It's looking more towards the stamp of horse I want to see. A little longer in the leg, a little lighter in build, and You know, if it didn't have the breeding of dressage, it could be a jumper as well.
I think it's actually interesting to look at it. We should actually give you earplugs, Graham, so you don't hear any of the breeding, and then give us your first impressions. But I think a good athlete is a good athlete. Rogan?
Absolutely. Good athlete's a good athlete.
So I think what is important to remember with the pedigree is it's actually the only way for us to track what's working. It's not a guarantee, it's a confirmation. So it shouldn't...
It can guide you.
It shouldn't misdirect your... In other words, you look at the horse without the pedigree and then you go, oh yeah, that explains a lot. And obviously when you're looking at young stock, there's no real guarantee until you've tried them. But if you look at the pedigree, you should be able to get an idea like, okay, well, this type of bloodline can make them a bit mouthy, or they can go wide behind in the extended trots, or they have talent and scope for piaffe passage, or they can be a little hot and fizzy. So it gives you that slight intuition, crystal ball, shall we say. Yeah, but it's not a guarantee. I can tell you there's horses that have got really weird pedigrees that are top draw, and horses with purple pedigrees that are...
Well, Rogan, with your
strange.
knowledge into South African thoroughbred breeding, I mean, that's so often the case, right? So you can use the best blood in the world and land up with something that likes
Not
to
much, yeah.
sleep in the starting stalls.
But I'll always say to you, pedigree doesn't lie. And buying a horse without knowing the pedigree is like buying a horse without a vet certificate. It would just be silly.
Yeah.
It just gives you another insight. It helps you.
Did you enjoy that enthusiasm in the final canter, Graham?
Yeah, no, I was just laughing at Rogan about his breeding, but
Our second horse here in our 2 to 3 year old dressage horses, Rivendell Gypsy. Another one owned and bred by Corin Koop of Rivendell Stud, another wonderful supporter of equestrian sport in South Africa. She says this is one of the last offspring of the stallion High Flyer before he passed away in 2020. The dam premium mare, Rivendell Gaia. Gaia bred by Ampere out of a Sandreo Landwind 2 mare. And High Flyer by Blue Horse Hotline Rodiamant. There's some wonderful, wonderful blood in this filly. So, Candice,
There goes a walk, people.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just thinking it's probably so far one of the better walks. The pedigree's gorgeous. I mean, High Flyer himself was fantastic. And gosh, then you start looking at Pharaoh, Sandro Hit, and Landgraf on the bottom line. So it's super interesting breeding. And she's nice and elegant, and certainly has a lot of expression when she moves, and it shows good elasticity. I think-
Beautifully turned out again.
And a really worthwhile trot.
I like the way that it naturally, even the walk, the trot, looks like it finds it easy to engage from behind naturally. And I mean, that hind leg action there,
Wonderful
for
use
me,
of the
is the
hops,
best
isn't
I've
it?
seen.
Yes. Very strong. Rangy
And he
canter.
jumps up in his shoulder in the canter.
And she's 3, so you have to remember there's lots more there.
I think it's really interesting looking at a horse that's, you know, even though she's a year younger, you can see certain things that are just so distinctly different compared to some of the older horses we've looked at.
I think the way the sport is going now, that if you can get a horse half made before you even start producing it, just by the way it moves and its conformation and the way this horse looks like, it finds it very easy.
Yeah.
In all 3 gates.
You're starting halfway towards the finish line already, I think. Third in this class, another horse out of the boutique stud, Cheval Dansant, bred here by Suboita, and this owned by Coco Rook Hunt.
What a
This,
lovely,
another daddy
what a
cool
lovely
progeny.
photograph.
Very striking. Another daddy cool progeny, so the same as our winner of the first class, not that I'm trying to influence you, out of the mare Midas Touch Devotion, who was a winner in her own right in these classes. She is Desperado Granulite Delgado.
He is beautiful, I must say, as a stamp.
Something about it, isn't it? Yeah.
Sue's been very successful and reliable in making beautiful horses, I must say. I haven't seen an unaesthetically appreciative horse coming out of her stud, and on top of that, they seem to have a lot of talent. It'll be nice to see once they're on sport as well.
Graham, your thoughts about this young mare?
No, I like it. It's very difficult from having just watched the previous horse not to get caught up on what you saw there. This horse, I think, is at a growth where it's still, every now and again, I think, is it lower in the front end than behind, and then times that it moves, but it could possibly be its age.
It's harmoniously made, wouldn't you say? No.
Is it a filly or a colt? Because
It's a
I'm not.
filly.
Okay, because I keep getting my genders mixed up here. I think she's an extremely well-balanced horse to look at, and I don't
Yep.
mean in her movement. So normally when there's something not right, it jumps out at me, and there's nothing particularly sort of offensive at this point. So it's chocolate box, and then again has 3 good gaits. I think, Graham, what you're seeing, she is a little flat in her way, but I do get the impression, although she's quite finished and she's got that impressive front end, she
Might
is
be a bit creep-high.
definitely still a little bit on the forehand for her age, and I think it's sort of to be expected. But
Yeah.
it is what it is, and that's what you've got to look at.
That's
so
it,
You, although you want to have imagination, which you'll bring through to the aptitude and impression side, that she is at the moment a little bit on the forehand. But she still manages that very well in her movement.
A lovely refined front with a quality head.
Good looks go a long way. I thought she was going to jump out for a second. That would have excited me. Really lovely, athletic type of horse.
Handy,
Oh, and look at that,
very
isn't it just
handy.
beautiful? Now on to our 4th horse in this class, Rivendell Stromboli. Again owned and bred by Karen Kopp. This horse being the full brother to Rivendell Burberry, who a top international trainer once called the best horse he had seen in South Africa. This horse is by Sir Donoghole, who of course needs no introduction, and out of a mare called Dacharat Britta. Her other progeny, Rivendell Boromir, who recently won Autumn Gold Cup. This is a gelding.
Wow,
Candice?
he's a lot more immature than the others. He actually looks more like a 2-year-old, but he's very long-legged and long-lined, and it certainly interprets out in that nice.
Swinging walk,
Swinging
huh?
walk.
Wonderful
My
walk.
word.
Yeah.
So I think it's very deceiving looking at him at this age, because he really looks more like a 2-year-old. I mean, actually, if you said he was a yearling, I wouldn't be totally shocked at that thought. So I think that is a bit of a disadvantage, but certainly a very expressive and elastic mover.
Isn't he?
And also well balanced over his lines, although immature.
Graham, what do you feel about this?
Yeah,
this type?
I like when I call it the loose movement. It seems to be very loose throughout its body, and I like that. It catches my
Wonderful
eye.
out of his elbow, like really. I love the customary dog in the background. That always appeals to a horse person.
Well, you either have a packet on the end of a stick or a Jack
Oh,
Russell.
yeah, totally. Then we
Is
see
there a
some-
difference?
We see some animation, as you said, Candice. Graham, the canter?
Yeah, the walk and trot really caught my eye. There's nothing wrong with the canter, but that walk and trot was really loose. This is good. I like it.
He reaches underneath with his hocks in the canter. They don't go out behind.
No.
And Candice, the dressage pedigree?
Oh, listen, I mean, he's beautifully bred. Sir Donoghole comes again and again and again in the pedigrees, and there's quite a lot of that around in South Africa.
Good
and
temperaments.
Yeah, and they're beautiful typey horses as well. And then Fleming and Pharaoh again. So I think, the pedigrees are awesome. We're seeing some really
There
good...
will be a lightness in there, wouldn't, and a modern, yeah.
Especially from the Dutch side,
Yes,
So the
yes.
Fleming and the Pharaoh will bring that slight more blood type in.
This 5th horse is an import of Susie Metaladies, Fire Dance. This is not yet in the video 2 years old. And this
Wow.
filly was brought into the country from Germany as a foal and was born late in the season in May in 2021. So she is by Feuertanz out of a Floristan accent Wenderkreis mare. Susie,
What a historic classical pedigree.
isn't it incredible?
And the Floristans on the mother line are really outstanding. That's
Very
where they
good
seem
brood
to
messiah.
have produced the most successful part of the bloodlines. Right, jump, high legs like that.
Susie herself, a very accomplished dressage rider, so I'm sure she's thrilled about this young mare. Graham, looking
I
at the
like,
movement?
just when I watch a young horse like this, I like a horse to want to canter.
Yeah, it's a lovely.
The canter sort of improves as she goes along. It started off a little bit tight, but now that she's relaxed into it, she starts to show a bit more range as well. Very elastic moving in the trot.
I think that desire to go forward is really a hallmark of a
And
sport horse.
she has an exceptional front end for her age.
really
I mean, she really does.
And a great expression.
Mhm.
Going to go have a look at herself in the mirror. And from an expression, temperament perspective there, Graham, as a young horse that we've
Yeah,
been
no,
to you?
temperament looks very, very good.
And at the edge, this conformation will change so significantly as the front comes up.
But she really
Very
looks
croup
quite
high.
But somehow you can still get a feeling for that completeness of
Yes.
it, right? It's there's an air of quality. She says the mare Fantasia has many other successful dressage progeny, most notably Bakari competing in medium tour in the USA. And Susie says the double F line makes this mare extremely easy to work with. Finds that she's very level-headed, so she's hoping for very high rideability in this.
I was looking down when that came
I
on,
know,
so
so
I
was
must
I.
assume that's somebody in the genetics and not her.
Our sixth horse in this class, Le Fleur de Feu, also a five-star progeny. This one out of a Sandreo, Ludwig van Beethoven, yet again dam line.
And there's, yet again, that's thoroughbred blood that was very successful in jumping.
Interesting to
Marcel.
see that good
Yep.
old little touch of blood coming through.
Five Stars made some really beautiful horses, and some of them are starting to come through on sport as well, which is
Absolutely, we're really seeing them
and
come
he
up there.
is beautifully bred himself.
This filly owned and bred by Melanie Lustgarten of Le Surstad.
But I mean, it's so hard making the comparison, and it's interesting how some of them are immature and some of them are very finished, which partly genetics, partly how they're being raised. You know, some are being left in fields, some are being groomed and fed lots of nutrition, which I'm sure also affects the development.
Absolutely, and not to say that anything's right or wrong. You know, swings and roundabouts for
Oh,
people
yeah.
taking a more natural approach versus.
Well, it's a bit like what they do for the yearling sales with the thoroughbreds. I mean, they all
Absolutely.
look ready to run literally at 18 months old.
But 5 months before that, they looked like they were a little herd of springbuck.
Exactly.
Graham, I love watching how intensely you're looking at
No, well,
this filly's movement.
yeah. I look at that and I want to see it naturally want to just canter. And as I said, it goes into the canter there. I think it's really important when you watch a young horse play around and you ask it to trot. I like them to want to canter, and that balanced canter is important because that's what's going to make the horse in a way. You know, it's no good having a very flashy trot up front when they don't naturally want to canter on their hocks. I think for me it's important.
Candace, obviously, a thing in the dressage is you can always improve the trot.
Oh, 100%. So walk and canter is something you can improve, but generally what you've got is what you're going to have. The trot, I mean, even horses like Tortillus, he really trotted like a chicken with hobbles, but once you got him going and made him engaged and collected, he trots for a 9.5.
Yeah.
So that, it's amazing what you can push out of the horses, and often the very big extravagant movers are a little harder to collect, and the more economical movers create more under pressure.
I think we saw that last horse 6 months too soon. I think it's a quality, lovely horse, but it's in a growing phase and very juvenile compared to some of the others. I'd like to see that horse 6 months again. I think it'll have our eyes
Interesting
wide.
comment.
Yeah.
Our seventh and final horse in this class, the 2 to 3-year-old dressage bred horses, owned and bred by Annerie Meyberg from Van Gaku Stud. This is Van Gaku Labelle.
So I certainly think that Lenbach has been very underrated because he is
Absolutely.
beautifully bred himself. And the mother line here is also stunning. I mean, Wolkenstein too, and Watzmann, Pickkönig. I mean, that's quite old Hanoverian lines, but certainly
So
well
solid.
tested.
The older brother of this horse won the Young Horse Championships in Western Cape in dressage and jumping, says Annerie, and her older sister was Supreme Champion in-hand show horse as well. So nice to see some progeny also doing well. Rogan, to your point about pedigree, does speak volumes.
It always does. Lots of solid old lines here.
Graham, your first impressions looking at that walk?
If I could just, on the whole stamp of horse, when I say a little old-fashioned, I again, a bit short in the leg, but I was just thinking now, with us having judged this, at the end of the day, as mentioned early on, temperament. If a horse is rideable and temperament, you can squeeze out of him a lot more than trying to contain an extravagant movement. But we're here to judge what we're seeing in front of us and not be influenced by that.
And Candice, as you say, some old blood pretty recently in the pedigree.
Yeah, look,
So interesting
I'm
to-
sure the sort of slightly heavier type, Graham, is coming from that bottom line. It's very old Hanoverian lines. Huh? So I do think Lenbach will, London Dairy obviously goes back to Laurie's Crusader and Brentana to Polero. So that should, I think actually this as a broodmare would probably be super interesting
lovely
because now you've got so much blood on the father line of this mare. If you put something else interesting on her, I think that would be super interesting.
A powerful mover.
Having commented earlier about the horses wanting to discanter, I think that tends to swing me a lot towards my general feeling or stamp of a horse. If I watch this horse walk and trot and then it's canter, and I've been trying to watch, do they canter or they've been chased into the canter.
I thought it was interesting as they unclipped her. She moved off in a way that I thought, oh, that's interesting. So she looked quite calm as they were handling her, and as soon as they let her go, she certainly sparked up and said, here I am.
I do think that Van Gaku has produced some really interesting dressage
She's
horses.
used, I think we're seeing a lot of these small breeders, Candice, using really
Yeah.
wonderful blood, very thoughtfully, very
Yeah.
carefully.
Yeah, I know Elizabeth Muller's riding one that's had fantastic results, I think now on EM, and there's a couple of them coming through. So she's got a very interesting and exciting project going on there.
That concludes our 2 to 3-year-old dressage bred horses here tonight at the South African Warmblood Virtual Young Stock Show. We're going to be announcing, we will have an interval after this. Before we move on to our 2 to 3-year-old jumping bred horses, we have 3 horses in that class. Our results for the 3 to 4-year-old jumping bred horses. In first place, we have Bardelino van het Grootveld Hof Z with 208.5. In second place, so close behind, Latour Bellabent Lubel on 205.5. Third place, Whitewater's Time to Time, 202.5. In fourth place, Willow Viva Ray, 201.25. In fifth place, Whitewater's Landry's Time, 195. And in sixth place, Rivendell Dabina, 194.5. Our winner of that class getting a 450 Rand prize, as well as a Cape Saint Blaze gin. If anyone deserves to drink, I think it's a horse breeder. our second place in that class, getting 350 Rand and a 2 kilogram equi and clay sponsored prize. Thank you to everybody who entered their horses there, and congratulations to our winner in that class.
Oh, is that?
Thank you to everybody who entered their horses there, and congratulations to our winner in that class.
334 Sport Horse Stud is an up-and-coming Warmblood stud farm based in Nottingham Road, KwaZulu-Natal. Named after our founder's beloved mare, Volker 334, the farm boasts some of the best bloodlines in the industry. At 334, we don't believe in gambling with genetic possibilities, but by breeding legendary sureties. 334 Sport Horse Stud, where champions are bred and legends are made.
Equine College is a private higher education institution based in Plettenberg Bay in the Western Cape. We offer a single program which is a 4-year professional BSc degree in veterinary physiotherapy. This degree has been developed in combination with the promulgation of a new paraveterinary profession, the profession of veterinary physiotherapy, which was promulgated in 2017. This represents a world first for South Africa, as we are the only country in the world where the profession of veterinary physiotherapy is recognized by the veterinary regulatory body. Currently, the Equine Librium qualification is the only route for automatic registration with the South African Veterinary Council. As pioneers in the field of veterinary physiotherapy, our mission is to produce independent and knowledgeable professionals who are prepared for lifelong learning and are ready to succeed in the workplace. Our vision is to be recognized internationally for the quality of our qualification and for the impact that our graduates will have on the standards of animal care. We work hard to instill our values of collaboration, diversity, equity, integrity, respect, and animal care in the hearts and minds of our students. Equine Librium students can expect to be working a lot with animals. Training is focused on treating dogs, cats, and horses. However, there are many other species of animal that can benefit from physiotherapy intervention. Once students qualify, they will have the skill set required to broaden their training to accommodate other species. Lectures are presented daily on the college campus. In addition to this, we do offer some online learning options, mostly to expose students to expert lecturers that are not able to travel to Plettenberg Bay. The first 2 years of the degree are more theoretical and involve more class time, while the third and fourth years are very hands-on and practical. Students will be working with live animals and real-world cases under the careful supervision of lecturers. If you are looking for a rewarding career working with competitive and companion animals as a crucial member of the animal health team and would like more information, take a look at our website equine-librium.co.za. Should you have any specific questions, or if you would like to organise a visit to our campus, please give us a call or send a mail. Equine Librium College could be the perfect place for you.
Back here. Yes, we have a result
Interesting
for
doing
our
this.
2 to 3 year old
Very-
dressage bred horses, which we have just completed.
The
In
minute you
first
said you
place,
like longer
Rivendell
legs, I thought,
Gypsy with 81%.
They look a little stuffy and
owned and
bit
bred
cobby,
by
bit
Karen
pony.
Cook.
You put it
In
exactly right.
second place, Rivendell Stromboli. Again, 2 for 2 for Karen Cook there with 79%. In third place, Susie McLeod's Imported Fire Dance with 77%. In fourth place, Sue Buerter's Bred and Coco Rook Hunt owned Cheval Dansant du Jardin with 76%. In fifth place, Bernafay Park Fantouche with 68%. In sixth place, Von Gaku Labelle with 66%. And there should be a seventh place there. No, it was, it was a tie for fifth. I beg your pardon, I missed that. Our other tie for fifth place was Le Surfleur de Few with 68% as well, along with Bernafay Park Fantouche. So those are our results for our 2 to 3 year old dressage bred horses, moving along swiftly to our 2 to 3 year old jumping bred horses. And our first horse that we're going to be looking at is bred by a Martini stud. Her name is I'm Imperial Vela. The owner, Claire Martin. Claire Martin, very passionate about her breeding project there. A big supporter of breeding your own horse and allowing yourself to have wonderful bloodlines like this horse, who is out of Rivervale. By Rivervale, I'm Yours, who is an I'm Special Demuse stallion, out of her wonderful dressage mare, actually, Fiona Vella, who is for Joy Raphael Watzmann. So some interesting breeding there for dressage on the bottom line, Candice.
Yeah, I've seen the mare on sport. I think she's pre-St. George Small Tour now, if I recall, and she does a damn good job on her. And certainly proven to be pretty flexible and all-round as a horse in general, with beautiful bloodlines. I'll have to pinch your bloodlines. Yeah, obviously for Joy, I was a big fan of him, jumping and doing dressage at Grand Prix level. And then Raphael and Watzmann. So pretty old pedigrees again, but good, really good, solid pedigree.
Graham, your first impressions of this as a jumper?
It's a difficult age for me to even comment on it. Looking at it, yeah, I'd like to see it just naturally, but again, I might be shot down by this, have its hocks naturally more under it, but that can change.
Rogan?
It looks better there.
I'm so prejudiced towards the horse because of the very nice pedigree. It's for me, an out-and-out jumping pedigree too. Seen that mother lion from Callagher produce good horse after good horse after good horse. Quite a difficult age to assess.
Very. Actually, its hind leg better at the canter than I
Yes.
saw at the trot.
And again, very animated, which is not going to compliment him right at this point, unfortunately. But a beautiful, I mean, he's very striking, that's for sure.
You can see Claire roped her mother in there to chasing this horse around. Moving along from our first horse in that class, Martiniam Imperial Villa, our second horse, Mythos Isengard, owned by Dawn de Rate and bred by Shane Gerber of Mythos Stud. Another I Am Special de Muse grandson, but this time by Diamonds Incognito, out of a Berengeti mare. Berengeti by Secundus, out of a Complete Warrior Ballygame thoroughbred.
So much old jumping blood or historic jumping blood in here.
Even going down to Trocadero right at the end.
Absolutely,
Rogan.
yes.
Now, Trocadero, I mean, he's one of those amazing thoroughbred influences. I mean, it would be interesting if we had access to the Trocaderos and the sort of Bahadurs and the
Permonts and
all of those. If we would use them again, I'm sure we would leap at the opportunity.
we really would.
A Splendor, that was the one I was thinking of.
Graham?
Just listening to Rogan and Candace and listening to the going back in the breeding of the horse, I again, like I said earlier, like to see slightly longer-legged, more athletic, lighter stamp horses. But it doesn't mean to say this is not going to jump houses. It's certainly
Certainly got a diesel engine there on the back end. Mythos Stud, another small
Very
warm blood
elastic
stud.
hind legs.
Mythos Stud out in Pretoria. So lovely to see our smaller breeders having an opportunity to get some of their young stock out here.
Look, I think this virtual show is an absolute winner for our breeders.
Absolutely. It's so
It's a
important.
phenomenal opportunity to platform the studs who are often tucked away in the mountains a million miles away from most of the actual riders. And it also makes it a proper national competition for us. It's not perfect because, you know, some people have loose schools and some people don't, and some people stand the horses on cobble and others on grass. But it certainly would give us an idea of what's happening out there. And I think it's essential for us to have this for our breeders to develop a reputation and to get the exposure that they need.
I think the handler is doing a wonderful job cantering there. I give him an 8 out of 10. Lots of enthusiasm. And this horse just seems to have a very laid-back temperament, right, Candace?
Yes,
Very.
he certainly looks like he's on holiday still, but
Looks outraged that someone would be
not
so rude to
too
him.
fussed about the fact that he's have a gentleman chasing him with a long line.
And out of interest, this is 343 I'm Special Demuse grandchildren in this class. This one also by the previous stallion Diamonds Incognito. This horse from Cry Comfort, White Waters, Iolite, Campio. So some Brandenburg and again going back to thoroughbred lines there on the dam line.
That
Rogan.
Concertino made good horses overseas and here. And that Life Out Thoroughbred blood is very, very impressive.
Graham, your initial impressions looking at this horse just standing up?
I like it.
Very much.
Thought you might.
He's certainly quite sporty. Very hard to look at the front feet when they're standing in the sand, to be totally honest. But, you know, we always give everybody the benefit of the doubt.
Can definitely see that thoroughbred blood coming through there, Rogan.
Yes.
I think it's also very difficult, just you were mentioning what a great opportunity it is for the smaller studs, any stud, to be put on this kind of platform. But if every horse was allowed to just be free like we're seeing now, and not being either lunged or, walked in hand, it just is a little easier and gives the horses a better opportunity.
Makes it more apples and apples.
Yeah, yeah.
Feelings on the canter, Candice?
So I think he's an extremely attractive horse with a good sort of neck carriage and a balanced proportion. He's a little disconnected in the loin and certainly presents in the trot. He trots a little bit out the back door, but that goes away when he canters. So for me, the canter is his best gait. And he covers a lot of ground and is certainly balanced and organized enough. You see him coming to that downward transition.
I was just going to say,
he doesn't stop on his head.
Yeah.
He stops, using his hind legs. So again, I was saying to Rogan, it's quite interesting for me this year how some of them are very finished and some of them are very unfinished. And that's been quite hard to judge. I think he is a little bit on the unfinished side. So, I think it's imperative that the breeders that have presented their horses tonight don't be disappointed or put off if your horse hasn't done as well as you thought, because I haven't seen a single horse that I've thought, Lord, that shouldn't have been here. And I think most of them really just do need some time. I've been fairly impressed most of the way through tonight.
So that was the third horse and final horse, and this is the 2 to 3 year old jumping bred horses here at the South African Warmblood Horse Virtual Young Stock Show. Our judges just handing in their results there. My judges tonight, of course, to my left, Candice Hobday of Hobday Equestrian Enterprises and ARCO. Also a Big Tour dressage rider, about to be a Big Tour dressage rider on the second time on your stallion, correct?
Indeed. Hopefully we will be knocking on that door by next year. So he's doing very well with medium tour at the moment, having lots of fun on him. Obviously quite different to what we're seeing here today, but having fun on my little bullfighting horses.
We're about to have a look. Our other judges, before we kick this off, Rogan Askin, needs no introduction, open trainer, show jumper himself, pedigree expert, and then our World Equestrian Games competitor at the end there, Graham Wynn, who is now competing very successfully also in the show jumping classes, but Graham is perhaps best known as a wonderful backhand producer of young horses, has saved many equestrians' lives, Graham. The work of the gods. Next in this class, 1 to 2 year old dressage bred horses, and we're going to be kicking that off with Dolce Vita, owned and bred by Yanni Kutsia. This horse that we're about to have a look at, this filly rather, is by Mythos Dionysus, out of CS Dollar, Attila, and Damdad's May. Attila, of course, the foundation stallion at the Hakahana stud. First impressions, Candice?
Remarkably correct for her age, actually. 2 is a really fugly time of
What
to
does
be
fugly
judging
mean,
them. I shall not be elaborating on that. But she looks really excellent, actually. So although she's not finished to the point of being too finished, she's certainly got good musculature, and although she's still a little bit croupy, it's not totally out of proportion. Going to be a chocolate box, that's for sure.
Graham, your first impressions?
There's
looking at
something
that
about
movement?
about the horse, definitely. It struck me when I first saw it. It's got something about its eyes, the way it looks, and I think it's something that could be interesting.
Rogan, you must be loving the thoroughbred blood that makes an appearance here. Do you think it speaks to the athleticism of what we're looking at?
Yes, and there's it's offset by the classic old Hanoverian blood, but this is a long-legged, long-lined horse. Has lots of appeal.
I actually think she really reminds me a lot of Annabelle, who was the full sister to Alaric, who was my sister's horse that went overseas, actually. And he was a very impressionable horse. He was extremely tall, with that very pretty action, and he had a wonderful character. So actually that line normally had quite good rideability. Whoops.
Oh, yeah. Moving along to our second horse in this class, another submission from Corin Koop of Rivendell Stud. This is Rivendell Fragonard. a Florimon progeny out of a wonderful dam line, De Niro, Valtmeyer, Brentano.
So again, a beautiful pedigree here. So lion-bred Donnerhall, lion-bred World Cup 1, Brentano 2. So certainly on the mother line, you've got De Niro, Veltmeyer, Brentano 2. And Florimon himself is a beautiful stallion. So and stamps quite exquisite horses.
Graham, first impressions looking at that walk on the scalding?
Yeah, good. I like it. Yeah, very good.
The Cursor Tree Jack Russell getting ready for the canter work. Rogan?
Yeah, very likable.
Nice to see such a strong class of young horses. I thought this was going to be a...
Easy canter, especially for its age.
very balanced already. Graham, your thoughts on that canter?
Yeah, and like I said earlier, a horse that just wants to canter, enjoys cantering, is important to me.
I love the expression.
I think his walk is his weakest gait. Certainly the Trotner canter is much more of a highlight, although the walk is solid, and certainly I think he would have a really good collected walk. The extended walk might, not, be getting on the heading on the 8th side, but luckily that's only one movement. He makes up for it in the rest of the way.
I like the uphill tendency in the rest of the paces.
It's also just
Modern.
trying to look at the different horses. It's so much easier when they're all working on a flat and not on a slope.
Absolutely, it makes it much easier to compare. This horse bred by Jaco Fourie of Arion Stud and owned by Jade Brummer. This is Arion Fine Arts by Jaco's lovely stallion FHM, who is first Wilhelm out of a Don Henrico Volkentanz mare line. And the mare on this filly, rather, is Axel Lampent Light Jallid. So again, going down to some great thoroughbred blood there, Rogan.
Yeah, very nice.
Especially the Seattle Slough and the Secretariat, interestingly enough.
Isn't this turnout lovely, really?
Gosh, and it's juvenile. You think there's so much to come.
So this was a March 2022, so it's just a year.
What I do like about him, even though he is quite juvenile, is he's quite rangy. Again, his legs don't look too short or too long. Everything's sort of fairly well proportioned, but he is very, very immature.
He's going to grow into a very impressive horse.
This is a filly.
Yep.
And of course it is. Look how
Sorry.
beautiful she is.
Well,
Of course it's a girl. Rogan, any thoughts on that, the American thoroughbred blood down there on the dam line?
it should give a lot of forward desire. It should give, and in fact, toughness.
Oh,
The
that's
minute you,
interesting.
yeah, the
Yes.
minute you mention Secretariat, so often very tough. We are seeing it at its most spidery age.
Yeah, totally.
But you just keep your dreams go crazy. You think, what potential?
No, I like him.
Graham, how are you
Very
feeling
interesting.
about
No, nice and loose, but really all just legs at the moment, and it's finding it even difficult.
Oh, look at that line change.
Yeah.
Graham, you wanted legs, and now we've given
No,
you
I've
legs.
got it. I'm
Yeah.
not disappointed in it at all. It's just at a very, when I say a weak age, it's an awkward age that it's not even,
Yeah.
it's like this young kid that's just grown too
Totally.
quickly, too soon.
You'd expect to see a really big Adam's apple, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on to our fourth horse. Karen Koop has bred this wonderful Rivendell Dior by Diamonite 1 out of a Guldnet Ling Osmium Falco dam line. This Dachrat Britta, we of course saw a progeny of hers in the previous class.
It's just got out of the shower. for the photo shoot.
Karen runs quite a tight operation down there.
Very,
Nice to see
very
these-
likable.
Those nice clear shots
Wow.
of the legs and feet.
It's nice to see a little bit of knee action.
And expression.
So we've got a battle of blood here, Dutch and Oldenburger in this
Yes.
colt.
Thanks
Seen
for
other
getting
progeny
the genders right.
Other progeny from that farm going back to Fleming on the dam side.
Did we see a walk yet?
Not yet.
Oh, okay, so I didn't blink for a long time.
Rogan, what for you defines the differences between Oldenburg and Dutch blood and how they would complement each other in a horse like this?
I think the Dutch will still be more refined, more modern, more elegant. The Oldenburgs, and Oldenburg's very mixed breed. I still think Dutch prettier, a little more modern, a little more elegant. What do you think?
Dutch blood, Candice? Shall I say it, or are you going to say
Well,
it?
you've got to watch that they can be a little on the electric side. So I think where you might find the balance is watering the temperament down with the Oldenburg bloodlines
Absolutely.
onto the Dutch pedigrees. The Dutch normally... Did I blink for a long time? Did you see walk?
I didn't see walk, no.
I think we must either play it again
Can we
or
have a look
because
at that video
unfortunately that will be marked as a 0, so that would be very sad. Okay, I'll make sure my eyes stay open the entire
We're
time
going
now.
to have a quick look again at this.
Anyway, coming back to the pedigree, I think the Oldenburger can sometimes help a little bit watering down that sparkiness because the Dutch lines are often extravagant movers, but often with a lot of tension. You know, you're looking at the jazzes, certainly the Flemings as well. So you have to find that balance for the rideability in the end.
Graham, looking at the canter on that colt, certainly lots of enthusiasm there.
Yeah, very much. And with it being a little bit more, if I could say, mature in its development compared to the other we've just seen, gave him an advantage of looking a little more on all 4 feet.
Did look quite balanced and organized.
I think he's quite an electric horse, and he's going to have a lot of expression. Certainly, he has that knee action through the trot and the cantering as well. But it's very hard to compare him to the previous one, Graham.
No,
because
absolutely.
The Spidery is a super example, but the other horse is very interesting as well. He's just
Here
really
we go
not
with
great.
here's
Now that
a
looks like
walk moment.
Okay, thank goodness. I definitely don't remember seeing that. All right, fantastic. You've got an extremely good walk.
And again, I love the expression and keenness on this colt.
It looks forward.
Okay, moving along.
Thank you.
Thank you to our tech team at the back there. Amelia Campbell-Horn, no stranger to the Warmblood breed. And we're making her suffer for it tonight. We're going to be moving on to our 5th horse of this class. That's going to be Coeur de Cuvée Dom Perignon. This horse owned and bred by Brigitte Billings.
So I think Karen would be very happy about this pedigree because those are 3 generations of hers.
Isn't
so
it
Daddy
lovely?
Cool Tadeus and Centurio. So, I mean, I do think Centurio was in principle a jumping horse, but there's nothing wrong with bringing a bit of jumping bloodlines into the dressage horses. I certainly always think
Yeah, I
the
think
elasticity and athleticism can sort of balance out that tension that you often look for in dressage horses. So that's often a wonderful add-on.
Tadeus, of course, was just her wonderful, one of the first, along with Attila, I think, one of the first warm-blood stallions to come into South Africa, and renowned for throwing temperament, size, and movement onto everything. So it's going to be lovely to have a look at this.
Tadeus was a big influencer in dressage in this country, for sure. Also, exceptional walk.
Wow.
That's like a machine. Graham?
Yeah, very good. And just watching it, doing it on its own, it's walking there naturally, not being chased, and it's just got a natural, good walk to it.
Now, walks with a lot of purpose and reach and elasticity. He's got an extremely long neck, actually, but thank goodness set on in a useful way.
Into which, no doubt, he's going to grow.
Graham, feelings about the movement?
From having watched it, definitely its walk and canter is a lot easier than the trot. The trot will develop.
He is a little goose-rumped, which I think will tend to make the trot look a little bit less swinging, but the walk and the canter is a highlight for me. I think you could make a lot more out of that trot.
I think it's worth noting that I know that the dam line right down at the bottom of that horse, Gilda, was a state premium mare that Karen actually imported as well. So really speaking to the importance of good mares.
Very true, actually. I'd forgotten about Gilda. That must have been one of her foundation mares.
Was. So last in this class, but certainly not least, Von Gaku Raka, owned by Michelle Waite, also bred by Anne-Marie Meyerberg of Van Gaku Stud. This horse by their wonderful young stallion Rembrandt. And out of a Velsa Pickboober 2, Steppenwolf mare. So that Pickboober 2 is really lovely to see. Your sister rode a Pickboober mare.
Piccola.
Yes.
Yeah,
also
exactly.
For Karen as well.
Yeah.
Oh. So the mare Vega won her mare class in Germany with 9s for temperament, rideability, and movement. Rembrandt by Rotspan out of De Niro so Donahoe, so really fantastic reading on this. Graham, what's your first impression of this colt?
We again influenced by what we've just seen previously, especially with the slightly more leggy, athletic type horse. Again, it's fine. I am influenced, as I said earlier, by just the first impression of it, especially while it was standing, although it moves different to that impression of while it was standing. It looked quite chunky
it looks
and
like it
tight.
just grew up 6 months in between those video clips.
That's it.
But
My word.
please note the difference when the horses turned out well. So I do
Much
think that
easier
is
to look
something
at.
that the breeders should also take cognizant. I'm not talking about feeding them 500 kilograms and polishing them for 7 hours every day. Just brushing the tail,
Clipped
giving
legs.
them a good groom, plaiting the mane, just makes all the difference in the world.
Rogan?
Yeah, I think when I look at how much this horse is going to grow, I always wish to see these horses next year and the year after.
It would be
to
lovely
see
to compare these videos.
Wouldn't
Maybe
it?
we should
And-
run a competition for that, Francis. So it's been 3 years of videos in a row.
What?
And that draws an end to that. Our 1 to 2 year old dressage bred horses here at this South African Warmblood Horse Virtual Young Stock Show. Our judges tallying it up: Graham Wynne, Rogan Askin, and Candice Hobday. And we have a result for you for the 2 to 3 year old jumping bred horses. In first place, Cry is going to be delighted. White Waters Iolite Campio with 71%, mark of 214. In second place, Claire Martin's I'm Imperial Vela with 70%. And I'm just trying to go back to check who the owner of the third place is. Mythos Isengard, bred by
That horse
Sinead
that came second
Gerber
was
of
the same
Mythos Stud
family as
and
Fiorella.
owned by Dawn de Rates.
Sean Corwin.
Those are the results
Very
for our
good
2 to
man.
3 year old jumping bred horses. First prize in that class, 450 Rand to go towards, I don't even think that covers a set of shoes, which just speaks to the tremendous devotion of our breeders. Still committed to this. It's a labor of love, and also a 2 kilogram equi clay. Thank you to our sponsors who have been so generous. It's really wonderful, everyone coming together to celebrate the warm blood breed. We're moving along to our under 1 year old dressage bred class. And we have 5 competitors in this, or 5 submissions rather. And our first one coming in, Vonkaku Benika, owned and bred by Anne-Marie Meiberg of Vonkaku Stud. This by another one of their stallions, Vonkaku Bismarck, out of her
bottom,
lovely
go to the
mare
bottom.
Venka, which is Wolkenstein
sorry.
to
Okay, this one,
Macho
yeah.
Eindruck 2.
Back to front.
I mean, Macho's got to be noted as a big influencer in dressage for bringing in type and blood as an Anglo-Arab. But that is a really good old Hanoverian bloodline for sure.
Venka, I think Anne-Marie has said that this is going to be Venka's last foal. Venka, this mare that you're seeing in the video, 24 years old. And, I mean, she still looks pretty wonderful.
Luckily, horses can't count.
And that's an exciting foal.
Isn't that lovely? Graham, your first impressions of the foal?
Very, very nice. Now, just listening to, again, I think at this age, and Rogan will say, Graham, at every age, the pedigree is going to be huge. It will swing you towards
Yes.
looking at it, because this, at an age where there's so much, I mean, I say a lot of excitement going around, and the horse is really moving beautifully. But and saying that, I think there's a lot about this horse. Lovely.
It is also quite hard to look at them at this age, Graham, because the hocks are so high, you know.
No, that's what I'm saying. You know, you just don't know how.
They're sort of quite out of proportion, often as sort of foals and yearlings and weanlings. But it's certainly a very beautiful model for its age.
I like a lot of knee action in front, like it has
I
got.
think you do.
I also really like seeing the mare in these. Isn't it lovely? Because we often
We've changed.
we
We've
all
just
know the
changed.
stallions.
We've just changed horses. The previous foal was dark. This is a bay.
Is this a different horse?
No?
No?
No, it's same. Then the light changed. And now we see it. Yeah, okay.
They did some editing.
I think it also matured a few weeks, like the
In between.
chestnut. I think they filmed twice.
Okay.
Because there wasn't walk on the previous video. Oh, I'm going to get a complex that I can't see walk.
Vonkaku Bismarck, of course, by Benicio, the wonderful Callao dressage stallion, out of a Florencio De Niro dam line. So, really lovely. Our second horse in this class, Gucciana,
Oh, wow.
owned
Glamourdale.
and bred by Samantha Foley. This is by Glamourdale.
There are your legs, Graham.
Yeah.
Glamourdale, of course, dominating international dressage competition at the moment. And out of Adanciano, first romancier, Rosario Sandro hit Dam.
Gosh, people have made an effort in terms of procuring pedigree.
That is exciting to see. I think this is the first Glamourdale that I've certainly actually clapped
In the
eyes
flesh.
on. Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly on this platform.
There's your enthusiasm to canter as well. Whoa, straight into the gallop. Graham?
Yeah. I like their canter.
Sam, if you're watching this, when it's time to back it, just send it to the man at the end of the table. Rogan?
Very exciting.
And it's definitely a clone of its mother in terms of, she's a
And
beautiful
its
mare
father.
herself, yeah.
And nice to see that it's a filly. That always excites me because it's always so much easier, of course, to use some wonderful top-class international frozen semen on a mare, but to have really great quality blood in your fillies as a future breeding prospect is wonderful.
Sure,
Definitely
so much to like.
Thinks quite a lot of itself, this little one.
Yeah, he's got.
Sam does say that it's quite sassy.
And one keeps thinking this. Huge kudos to all the people who've presented horses. It's got to be a very vulnerable thing to do, and the effort that people have made, really huge kudos to all of you who've entered, presented, and allow us to pass our feeble comments on these horses.
For sure, Rogan. I mean, there's no doubt that every single person that has bred a horse here is passionate and believes in
Committed
their
and
bloodlines. And the reality is that you're only halfway with the horse. It's got to take the equine thrombosis to take it the next leg, and that would be the clot in the saddle. So you can have a fantastic horse that ends up being useless, and a useless horse that ends up being fantastic, and that's going to be down to the trainer and the rider. So,
And as well, we might just be seeing a moment in time in this horse's life and on a video. Third in, Von Gaku Romeo. This colt by Von Gaku Rembrandt as well, out of a Florencio De Niro Esprit mare. This also owned and bred by Annerie Meyerberg of Van Gaku Stud. Quite a solid little chap. Double De Niro blood in this colt.
wow. That's rangy.
Graham, first impressions of the walk?
The walk is one of the better ones of this age group. It was really good. And what Candice and Rogan was saying, just how privileged we are to have the, horses bred and trying to breed that ultimate horse. We really are spoilt in South Africa just to have...
You and I grew up only seeing these horses in magazines and on video.
Yeah,
They were not local. So that,
It's also interesting, Graham, when you speak about the ideal horse, your ideal horse and mine might be very different. So isn't it wonderful that we've got such an array of breeders?
yes.
Candice, as it trotted on, how did you...
So he certainly carries a lot of expression and sparkle, and he is quite uphill moving for his age, uses his front end really well, very nice. I like the rhythm a lot. Could be a little more engaged, but it's such a weird age for them behind, you know, with those high hocks. So I think he's doing well for his age. I love the fact that he's in front.
I was just
So
going to say,
he's,
just
you know,
cheers
he's
by.
quite bold. He's
Yeah.
not nervous looking. He's sort of confident. I think that will be a very useful attribute in time.
He's a scopy mover.
And got, you know, markings that make it look, wow. You know.
yeah.
It does, Matt. It does help.
Look,
you
they
know.
say the horse with the red rosette is the best looking one, but I
Yeah.
can tell you for sure now a good looking horse helps create
Moves.
a decent impression.
We're all more forgiving of good-looking men, right, Candice?
Absolutely.
Graham, Cantor?
I'm interrupting him, sorry.
no,
you
it's
all
all right.
know what it's like when I get my hands on the
Graham's
microphone.
mesmerised.
Do you know what I do like about him? He can really change left, right really easily. So he's super coordinated in his...
He shows blood in his canter.
Yeah.
And very on all four legs, you know, the way he changes from left to right like he's just done now. I mean, absolutely.
I love seems to have quite a sense of independence, which is lovely.
Very much so. No, I think they've done really well with this foal.
So that another presentation from Von Gaku Stud, our fourth horse in this class. These are dressage horses under the age of 1. Watermark Lazario. Look at all that white. I'm a sucker for a bit of splash, and that coming through. Rogan, we discussed this a few weekends ago from Lissabon on the sire line. Lissabon himself, wonderful internationally accomplished stallion, brought in by the Callahoo Stud. And then we see on the dam line, Benicio De Niro Valtmeier. I mean, that's just a blue-blooded dressage pedigree there, right?
Yes.
Yep, for sure.
This horse owned and bred by Yvonne McCarthy of Watermark Warmbloods. And he is a perfect watermark almost of those two stallions in his pedigree, Lissabon and Benicio.
Now remember, Benicio also carried a lot of white through.
That's
huh?
true.
No, he is going to be very flash when he's mature.
This colt was born in January this year, so,
Wow.
and he looks like he's about to be as big as his mother.
A very leggy colt.
Graham?
Yeah, I was starting to look at my marks now. I've given all the foals a lot higher marks than I've done with the slightly older horses, just because I get caught up in it. But looking at this horse, it looks older than it is
does,
in the
yeah.
way it's moving and its length of leg.
Also
And
looks a bit more finished. It's been interesting to
Yeah.
see
Very
the different
tall, huh?
ages.
very, very tall.
Very impressive walk.
It looks
Lots there.
older. There's more to it than its age.
Yes,
And he's quite refined as well, huh?
yes.
You were just looking at Watermark Lazario. That is our fourth horse in this under 1-year-old class, owned and bred by Yvonne McCarthy, now in Von Gaku Baron, owned by Genet Ferreira, but also bred of Anri Maiberg of Von Gaku Stud. This horse also by Von Gaku Bismarck, the Benicio Florencio 1 stallion of Von Gaku Stud, and out of Von Gaku Divine, who is a De Niro, Sir Donoghol, Wolkenstein, Macho Me. So
We've seen this combination of blood in different ways consistently this evening.
it's been interesting.
Yeah.
And thank you, Anri, for not only breeding so many lovely horses, but supporting an effort like this.
She really does have extremely good, solid Hanoverian bloodlines on mostly on the mother lines, but obviously coming through on the father lines too. He must be just weaned, obviously, because I don't. Oh no, there's the mare. Must be, but he's also huge, actually.
Yeah,
That's a
Yeah,
very
of
big,
course.
he's an October 2022 colt.
and he really will grow into his head.
Yeah. Bless. And his ears. His ears are very good for dressage, right, Candice?
The bigger they are, the better they listen.
Graham, your first impressions of this colt?
I was waiting for you to ask me that. Now, again, I realize when I say look at horses at this age working that you've got to have your eye in and be experienced to judge a horse like this, because you get influenced by just their youth and excitement and their energy that they show. Even though he trotted with his hocks out a little bit and canters out, but I think it's really unfair to give them a mark
It's a different type
at
of
this
horse.
age.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look, he's quite rubbery, huh? Which you sort of initially looking at him, you think he's going to be a bit of a clunker, but he's not really. at
No,
all.
that's
So I think he is more than what the impression of a stationary horse gives. And again, you look at him in a few years' time, I think he'll be awesome.
Strong feeling of range and scope. And power.
And this lovely colt Von Gaku Baron concludes our under 1-year-old dressage bred horses here tonight. Our next class is going to be the under 1-year-old jumping bred horses, and we have 4 in that class.
I think that was quite a strong class. to be
Yeah,
honest.
that's very.
The foals were wonderful.
Yeah.
We have a result for the 1 to 2-year-old dressage bred horses. In first place, we have Coeur de Cuvée Dom Perignon, owned and bred by Brigitte Billings of Coeur de Cuvée Stud. Brigitte, I apologize if I'm not
I
saying
think
that
you just go on
correctly,
your
with
feelings.
77%.
Isn't
In
that
second
logical?
place, Karen Koop's Rivendell Dior with
You get little
76%.
flashes of.
In third place, Aryan Fine Art, bred by Yaku Free of Aryan Stud and owned by Jade Brummer. And that is actually a tie with Dolce Vita, owned and bred by Yanni Kutsia. We had another tie which I missed. Sorry, I'm just working through my sheet here. Karen, you cannot be accused of playing favorites. Your Rivendell horses tied for second place. That's Rivendell Fragonard with Rivendell Dior. That in second place. Our 2 third place horses, Aryan Fine Art and Dolce Vita. And in fourth place, Von Gaku Raka with 72%. Those were our 1 to 2-year-old dressage bred horses. In first place, again, Coeur de Cuvée Dom Perignon winning 450 Rand and a 2 kilogram equi and clay prize there. And our second place, Rivendell Dior, tied with Rivendell Fragonard, 350 Rand prize there. We're going to be moving along now to our under 1-year-old jumping bred horses here at the South African Warmblood Horse Virtual Youngstock Show. And our first horse in this class, bred by Shanae Gerber of Mythos Stud and owned by Kyla Felvik. This is Mythos Hizashi.
So there we sit again, Bold Ruler.
All the lines in the dam line
yeah,
have
and
produced
Trocadero.
A grades from Secunda's Complete Warrior, Ballygame and Trocadero. Quite a very impressive dam line. One would take this very seriously.
And having a look at that walk, is that something you would expect to see with this blood for a jumping horse, Rogan?
Yeah, I'm keen now to see a trot and canter.
I think, I can't honestly say that I would link a walk with a pedigree so much, Georgie, as, he is quite, or she, it is quite long-legged and proportioned for her age, his age at the moment. So, and again, I want to reiterate, is often at this age they have a better walk than what they end up with because they have these long hind legs. But certainly quite nice, fine-boned, not too chunky to start, and elastic in its mechanic, which is quite nice to see.
Rogan, is it possible, besides pedigree, at this age you obviously can't free jump foals, what do you look for in a potential jumping prospect?
So much in the beginning, just the reactions, whether it wants to, how it, does it attempt something, and very often you'll get a little flash of elasticity and application.
And Graham, does that tie together with what you were saying earlier on just about temperament and approach and attitude?
Yeah, I'll be the first one, even though I've been asked to judge this. I think Candace and Rogan will be a lot fairer in that they will know their pedigrees, and I think that's very important at this, because looking at this, it's really awkward with it being a little high in the croup and the way it moved a little bit flat in its trot work with its front legs. Not to say it's not going to jump and be really sharp and reactive. So it's an awkward age for me to judge something like this. So what Rogan was saying was just to see it as an individual, how it stands out. Is it happy to go on its own? Is it, and try and work out its temperament.
Well, it speaks to qualities that you would expect to see in a trainable sport horse.
Yeah, I think at this age, Georgie, you're going to be rather looking at what you're ruling out, because there is no crystal ball. So if the leg's pointing the wrong direction, you don't necessarily want to buy that. If it's obviously ewe-necked or obviously cow-hocked or obviously boxy, so you want to rule out the real poor conformation, I would be inclined to be looking at the mother, probably more than the foal.
A very good point.
In terms of making my decision. And then coming back to what I mentioned earlier, you would use the pedigree to try and create a little bit of crystal ball to see, okay, it's got Clinton in it, it's going to have a lot of scope, but the rideability is not necessarily going to be so good. So that would give you a slight forecast of what you're in for. And then I agree what Graham was saying earlier, if it's very nervous and unbrave, that would maybe be an indication of the fact that the horse might not have as much heart as one that is in front, but there's no guarantees. When you're buying a foal, it's a bit lucky. Breeding is big lucky packet.
When you're buying a horse, there's no
foal
guarantee.
is lucky packet too.
Moving on to our second horse. This is Equinobilium Capital Melody. This is owned by Richard van der Wath and bred by Capital Stud.
Gosh,
Massive pedigree on this.
that's scopy.
Kronos van het Poland out of a Chicolato Z Capriccio Argentinus Sandreo Melan.
So you're really saying Hanover meets Holstein in this pedigree.
It's wonderful.
And if you get the best of both of those, you're away.
Capital again, cornerstone of South African breeding is really, as you can see here in this foal, invested in their mares.
But coming back to free jumping foals, I've seen them pop foals over poles on the ground.
Yes, Schockermüller loose jumps his young stock from basically weanling, and he loose jumps them every year, and apparently he remembers, of his thousands, he remembers every year, every foal. Apparently he's incredible.
At that age, Rogan, is it more just about seeing their attitude
And
towards
reactions,
obstacle?
and
Okay.
yeah, and reactions. You get a sense of chord, balance, rhythm.
Graham?
What's interesting is with every one of these horses that we've seen so far, I'm fully expecting one of the owners or the buyers to say, Graham, this is a horse you gave very bad marks to, and look at it, it's just one SA chance or whatever
Graham's
it
never
is.
coming back.
And because a lot of it is, as Rogan said earlier, in the pedigree. They are bred to actually perform, and just because their trot might not get my mark for it, doesn't mean to say it's not going to jump.
Yeah. As I've also tried to photograph or video foals before, and it's heartbreaking. They just are very uncooperative.
No, listen, I think it's for sure what Graham is saying. Judging a jumping foal, and not to say that people shouldn't present them, because it's all exposure and it's education and it's marketing. But it only has to jump, number one, and get over the fence, and it's got to want to get over the fence without knocking a pole. The rest is sort of academic. Hopefully it's got a good conformation so it stays sound, but it can walk, trot and canter for it too. I mean, some of the self-Français can't canter at all.
And we've all seen those weird, you know what I mean? There's a whole bunch of freaks there at the top levels.
Yeah.
That's another thing. There are outliers everywhere.
Third horse in this class, bred and owned by Martini Stud, that is Claire Martin. This is Martini Prescott.
So when you look at this pedigree, you know why they've done this. You know what they were thinking. Scottish Lady jumped, opens very successfully. There you see on one of our best all-time lines, Noble Chieftain, on the very bottom. So for Joy, Noble Chieftain, and then Comme il faut, Katandi, it can't fail. It just can't not jump. We just, whether it's better or... Got a mighty walk, hasn't it?
It really does.
Very lovely. So this is a December colt.
Should we start gambling on how it's going to trot? But you see,
And Claire says the dam of this jumped up to 130s with Kelly O'Connor and won the 6-year-old young horse performance series.
not surprised.
Well, it can canter, that's
That
for
it
sure.
can
Yes.
do. Yeah.
Yes.
You can see Claire's taken the effort to actually use some tape to lay out and enclose this flat space
Yes.
to show off her horse, and I think it's really
Rather nice.
And it really
mean-
aids you in showing off your horse to the best of its
And
ability.
even the mom is platted and prepared.
No, for sure. Look, when you're trying to judge the horses, if they're changing direction and speeding up and slowing down and animating and then stopping, it's very hard to find, get your eye into trying to really judge the horse in a fair way. So when they are well prepared like this, it makes the hugest difference in the world.
Having visited these farms, depending on when you see the horse, you can be crazy about it, then the next time not, and the next time again, same horse, crazy about it. Everything changes.
Just part of the growth cycle.
Yeah.
What did they say? 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years.
All of that.
Conti con Oratorio C. This our fourth and final horse in the under 1-year-old jumping bred section, owned and bred by Mandy Clark of Conti Stud. Conti's Capriccio on the sideline, out of Asias Montreal. Wunderbar mare.
Well, I'm always a big fan of Wunderbar. I've loved him as certainly from the dressage side. He always made such wonderfully rideable horses, and I've always been hugely impressed by the Consuelos as well.
There's going all the way back to Moss Cable made grade A horses or good open horses. Yeah. So you always think, well, if somebody phoned me to come and look at this, would I bother? Yeah, you'd drive a long way to see this pedigree.
I'm enjoying seeing way at the bottom of this pedigree. I've actually never seen that. Unknown Namibian farm horse.
That's how some of the Namibian studs started, with just local or semi-indigenous mares, and then imported stallion put on, and then imported stallion put on that mating, and so they upgraded.
Constant improvement, right?
Yeah, that's
all we're
that's
looking
really, and the effort they make and the commitment.
He must be a little bit older if he's weaned already, or just very brave not to be with his mother.
He's in August 2022.
Okay. So he is a bit older.
Graham, tell us what you see. We promise you the owner won't come for you. Andy, don't go for Graham.
It must be older because it's a lot more
Finished.
finished off compared to the three previous ones three previous horses that we've looked at. Somehow it doesn't look as rangy as those foals, but then again it could be an age thing.
And I think that concludes our under 1-year-old jumping bred section of this. Four horses in that class.
Sorry, Georgie, nearly spoke over you. So I think there's a huge improvement, Rogan. Remember the first year, half the horses didn't walk or canter, or they were galloping down the highway. So compliments to the breeders, for the conformity is a lot better. I still want to say, try to turn your horses out. Number 2, try to stand them on more level ground, because there were a couple of horses standing on cobbles or deep sand. It makes it very hard. You know, part of the marks is type and conformation. You know, we've still got to see if there's problems on the feet and the straightness to the point. And then prepare them, like Claire did a great job. The horse knows its job. It's not frightened, it's not nervous. Yeah, do a little bit of homework. It's worth it. There are people out there watching these virtual shows, and it's part of your marketing tool. It's worth the effort. So although hugely improved, I think there could be more effort put into preparing the horses even more so for this event.
I think these virtual shows, and also the fact that it's saved on the SA Warmblood Horse YouTube page and socials, that allows people a body of evidence to go back to. So if you're going to enter a horse next year, you can come back, you can see who did well, who was presented most beautifully, and it gives you a starting point as a presenter or a breeder or an owner to work from and do the best job.
100%. And I think it was, again, the foals were quite impressive, and I think the dressage horses looked really good. I was certainly talking to somebody the other day, and I was a bit under the impression that there are less people breeding dressage horses, but I think I might need to take that back.
I was watching last year's video, and tell me what you think, Rogan and Graham, where you said you can often find that a jumping horse can do dressage, but seldom can a dressage pedigree jump.
That remains true.
No, I do think, I've seen a couple of dressage horses jump, but not to top level. I think almost any horse could probably skip around a meter 10, maybe even a meter 20. But certainly, again, look at Joy. He was a Grand Prix show jumper his entire life, came to South Africa and got trained to dressage. And that is the thing with dressage. It's about what you can make of them. So the aptitude, the rideability, and what happens when you put pressure on is actually really what counts. Not just that the horse moves. Often you see the Bundeschampionats overseas disappear because that mega mover is not necessarily a Grand Prix
Or it's
prospect.
not necessarily rideable. You know, I think temperament's become an increasing conversation in the sport horse space over the last few years, where
Yeah.
initially, as you spoke about, Rogan, you also spoke about Dutch blood. You know, this electric blood was not necessarily easy for an amateur to ride.
There's a big worry, is so many horses are not going to be suitable for amateurs. We've been discussing that. These modern horses with all this quality and blood are going to move themselves out of the amateur category. And I find some of the Warmbloods close to dangerous. It's so hard work, says I, looking at Graham and his
Graham,
Valentino.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But don't you find, even with the jumping, often the really mega careful ones are disasters for amateurs?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
the brave ones are often not as careful, but those aren't good for top level, even if they are scopy.
Yes.
But the careful ones, which is what you really need, and I'm not talking about over careful, huh? I'm talking about one that knows where its legs are. You run that horse into the base of the fence and clunk it out one too many times, it's going to say, thanks, I'm not interested in this.
Absolutely.
So, and it doesn't
Absolutely.
mean it has a bad temperament, it just means it's not stupid.
Too much quality.
Graham, when
much
it comes
quality.
to types, as somebody who often is taking on horses for schooling for owners, what do you think about that, with the balance of kind of quality, temperament, ability, and what the South African market is really looking for?
I'm going to swing towards temperament. And, you know, as much as I must thank you all very much for getting me involved in this, I've never done anything like this before. And if I look back to the horses I've been successful on, and this might please Rogan, is it's not just I schooled them correctly and we're lucky on them. They actually, I get pointed at this out to me all the time. I actually have got very well-bred horses. So right through, the breeding has come through on all of them. And it's not just the ability to school and produce a horse that'll stand you good stead in the end of it. And when it really counts, one does have to go back to the breeding of it, that they can take a knock. Coming back from an eventing background, a lot of the horses have been really tested, and it's those horses that can do possibly 4 4-stars and not just 1 4-star never to be seen again. That is the potential. So there's a lot more to the breeding that and making a top horse. A top horse is a horse that can keep staying at the top and keep doing it over and over again. And that is very difficult. And if you ask me, Graham, how do we find that? I don't know about all that. I don't know.
Yes,
But
you do from pedigree.
But
Rogan says pedigree, Candace says confirmation, Graham says temperament. I think between all three of you, we've got
Well,
the
it's
the
all
perfect
of it,
mix.
actually. It's
Both
never
of you,
just...
both of you dressage ladies know that you have to ask the horses to do things sometimes when they're tired. And the generous dressage horses, even when they're tired, you can ask for one more thing. The generous jumpers, you can make a mistake, turn the corner, they'll prick their ears and have another go. The ungenerous ones, you turn the corner and they go, and the ungenerous dressage horses go, don't do that to me again.
Generous event
both,
horses.
you'll have both experienced that.
No, for sure. And you can make a generous horse ungenerous very quickly as well. So
Well, that's abuse, and we wouldn't be wanting to head in that direction.
I think Candace is, that's the clot in the saddle, the equine
There we
from
go.
races.
Yeah, yeah.
We have a result for our under 1-year-old dressage bred horse here. There was a tie for first place. Annery will be very pleased about this. Von Gaku Romeo tied with Von Gaku Baron, with 79% there for those two horses. In second place, another Von Gaku horse, Benicia. In third place, Watermark Lazario. And in fourth place, Gucciana. Gucciana getting 74%. Our third place, Watermark Lazario, 77%. Second place, Von Gaku Benicia, 78%. And our two tied first place
They're nice
horses on
horses,
79%. Our first place winners getting 450 Rand and a prize from Equi and Clay. Thank you for that sponsorship. And to tie it all together, we get to wind off with our under 1-year-old jumping bred horses. The winner there for Martini stud, Martini Prescott, with 79%. In second place, Equinobilium Capital Melody, with 78%. In third place, Mythos Hizashi, with 72%. And in fourth place, Conti Con Oratorio C, with 71%. Our winner in that class getting 450 Rand and a Cape Saint Blaze gin Claire, we all expect to be invited around for drinks. And second place, 350 Rand and an Equi and Clay prize there. Congratulations to all of our competitors today. And a thanks again to the South African Warmblood Society for organizing this, Francis Shabub, the energy behind all of this, and this wonderful opportunity for breeders from around South Africa to showcase their stud, their breeding, and their sport horses to a much broader audience. We would also like to thank our judges. I've got Candice Hobday, Rogan Eskin, and Graham Wynn here with me tonight. It's been wonderful to listen to the insights from all of you coming from so many different perspectives. But a final thank you would have to go to the to the sponsors, and that is CDC, Equifeeds, Biomass Removal Services, Rivendell Stud, Kiev Finance Studio, Winstead Stables, Hello Quality Equestrian Leather Goods, Equine SA Online Marketing Services, Milmac Feeds, Talkcraft, Aquila Warmblood Stud, Glover Paddocks Equestrian Park, 334 Sport Horse Stud, Iconic Sires and Breeding Services, R&R, and Watermark Warmbloods. Equine SA has very generously offered a sponsorship to any of our competitors today. If they would like to sell their young stock, please reach out to Equine SA. They offer fantastic online marketing services for the promotion of horses for sale in South Africa, and that's a wonderful sponsorship to aid our smaller breeders in getting onto a bigger platform. My name is Georgie Roberts. I've been stepping in for tonight for Aidan Lithgow, who's unfortunately not well. Get better soon, Aidan. And thank you so much for joining us.
We would like to look at the dressage marks for the 1 year under ones, please. There's a mistake. Which one was the one with the doubles? Yes.
We're just having another look at the results for our under 1 year old dressage horse. We're just confirming those marks. Please give us a moment.
Horses bring us pleasure, huh? And friendship. You get home late after this, huh? You're right.
Yeah, very, but I'm a little out of my depth when it comes so quick.
I don't think so. Oh, yeah.
I did warn you it goes.
No, 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 no.
And that's not your fault, and that's how it is. You've got to just
No,
do your
but I
best.
do think that the more you do it,
Yeah.
in the way of more you look at young stock, the easier it becomes to quickly
I was
identify.
quite overwhelmed the first year.
334 Sport Horse Stud is an up-and-coming warm-blood stud farm based in Nottingham Road, KwaZulu-Natal. 334 named after our founder's beloved mare, Warmblood Stud Farm, based in Nottingham Road, boasts some of the best bloodlines in the industry. After our founder's beloved mare, Volker 334, the farm boasts some of the best bloodlines in the industry, carefully selected and bred for their exceptional jumping abilities and athleticism. In the words of our founder, Govert Triggle, my philosophy for 334 Sport Horse Stud.
I mean, if you, Zimbabwe, anywhere else in Africa, I think with what I know, hasn't the opportunity of the studs we've got that are all doing it literally almost as a hobby.
It is a
more
hobby.
than
It's a passion. It's an
that's it,
indulgence.
yeah.
From Algeria to
334 Sport Horse Stud is an up-and-coming warm-blood stud farm based in Nottingham Road, KwaZulu-Natal. Named after our founder's beloved mare, Volker 334, the farm boasts some of the best bloodlines in the industry. At 334, we don't believe in gambling with genetic possibilities, but by breeding legendary sureties. 334 Sport Horse Stud, where champions are bred and legends are made.
We would like to make a correction there to the under 1 year old dressage bred horse class here. Our winner of that class, Watermark Lazario. That was the Lisbon Benicio colt. that is owned and bred by Yvonne McCarthy of Watermark Warmbloods. In second place, a tie for Von Gaku Baron and Von Gaku Romeo with 79%, Lazario on 82. In third place, Von Gaku Benicia with 78%, and in fourth place, Gucciana with 74%. Apologies for that mistake. Human error, as Candace said, the equine thrombosis, a clot in the saddle. Today, technological demons. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. This was the South African Warmblood Horse Virtual Young Stock Show. We've had a wonderful evening here of seeing some of the best blood out and about in South Africa, and we certainly look forward to seeing these horses back here again next year.
Equine Librium College is a private higher education institution based in Plettenberg Bay in the Western Cape. We offer a single program which is a four-year professional BSc degree in veterinary physiotherapy. This degree has been developed in combination with the promulgation of a new paraveterinary profession, the profession of veterinary physiotherapy, which was promulgated in 2017. This represents a world first for South Africa, as we are the only country in the world where the profession of veterinary physiotherapy is recognised by the veterinary regulatory body. Currently, the Equine Librium qualification is the only route for automatic registration with the South African Veterinary Council. As pioneers in the field of veterinary physiotherapy, our mission is to produce independent and knowledgeable professionals who are prepared for lifelong learning and are ready to succeed in the workplace. Our vision is to be recognised internationally for the quality of our qualification and for the impact that our graduates will have on the standards of animal care. We work hard to instill our values of collaboration, diversity, equity, integrity, respect, and animal care in the hearts and minds of our students. Equine Librium students can expect to be working a lot with animals. Training is focused on treating dogs, cats, and horses. However, there are many other species of animal that can benefit from physiotherapy intervention. Once students qualify, they will have the skill set required to broaden their training to accommodate other species. Lectures are presented daily on the college campus. In addition to this, we do offer some online learning options, mostly to expose students to expert lecturers that are not able to travel to Plettenberg Bay. The first 2 years of the degree are more theoretical and involve more class time, while the third and fourth years are very hands-on and practical. Students will be working with live animals and real-world cases under the careful supervision of lecturers. Mostly to expose students to expert lecturers that are not able to travel to Plettenberg Bay. The first 2 years of the degree are more theoretical and involve more class time, while the third and fourth years are very hands-on and practical. Students will be working with live animals and real-world cases under the careful supervision of lecturers. If you are looking for a rewarding career working with competitive and companion animals as a crucial member of the animal health team and would like more information, take a look at our website, equine-librium.co.za. Should you have any specific questions, or if you would like to organize a visit to our campus, please give us a call or send a mail. Equine Librium College could be the perfect place for you.